Hi there. It's September the 28th, and we're continuing our journey through the prophecies of Isaiah, in Hebrew Yeshayahu, that means the Lord will save, and following on the wonderful song of the suffering servant in Isaiah 53, which points to the Messiah and his carrying the sins of the world, but also his resurrection into glory. We now come to Isaiah 54 to 57, which is full of joy and promise of covenant. And so at the beginning of chapter 54, there's a call to sing, barren one, sing one who never bore children. Maybe it's a looking back to Sarah and the promise of children to her who was barren. Through God's promise she bears. It says, make room, enlarge the tents, because God's going to do something of redemption and restoration and salvation, the like of which has not been seen. God is going to restore the relationship with his people. He's going to give himself again as her husband in covenant, and covenant is one thing that comes through, and the associated word hesed, the covenant obligation, covenant grace that goes with it, comes through these chapters. There's a restoration of the city. The city is going to be restored. They're going to be, its foundation stones are going to be precious stones. They're going to be something of great value. And the chapter 54 ends with saying that no weapon formed against you will prosper. God is going to be the defense of this city of God. And then in chapter 55, there's a call to come. It's like the cry of a merchant, perhaps, or even the cry of a stallholder saying, hey, everyone who is thirsty, come and drink, come and eat without money, because this restoration, this salvation has been paid for by another. And so there's an invitation to come and eat and drink. And then he says, why would you eat and drink? Why would you spend money for that which is not food? It says, come and eat and drink. Because God is establishing, again, this everlasting covenant, this covenant of David. David, of course, is the one to whom God promised the throne that would never cease, which now has passed to the one who is the suffering servant, who has triumphed by his sacrifice and by his resurrected life. There's going to be a new season. There's going to be a season of seeking God. Seek the Lord while he can be found. Call upon him while he's near. Let the wicked forsake their way, the unrighteous their thoughts, and let them return to the Lord our God. And there's a call back to a season of repentance. In chapter 56, there's a picture of the Sabbath of rest. And Sabbath is a picture of completion. The Sabbath is that which crowns God's creation and which brings the wholeness, the completion to creation. And not only is this going to be for God's people Israel, but there's a wonderful promise. This is going to be extended to people who previously have been outside of the pale. This salvation and this restoration is for the whole world, and that includes the strangers, the ones who maybe are afraid to draw near to God. Now they're called in. Not only that, but even eunuchs, those who under the law of Moses were not allowed even to come into the presence of God, are now welcomed into the presence of God if they will enter into this rest, if they will enter into this completion of God's covenant with them. It's an amazing picture of God's restoration and love. Also, the outcasts of Israel, those who have been far away, are now going to be gathered. But not all is well in this situation, and from chapter 56 and verse 9, there's an oracle which speaks to the corrupt leadership of what has been, and tells them that they need to be careful, because they're not going to be accepted in their corruption. These blind watchmen, it says. And Isaiah also expresses God's concern and God's judgment against the continuation of idolatry and of sorcery which is going on. There's reference to child sacrifice which has been happening. It's like adultery is happening in Israel, the adultery of God's people with foreign gods. But God actually says, well, he says there's no hope of rescue in these idols. They cannot help you. But then at the end of our reading, in the middle of chapter 57, God is saying, but I don't want to fight you over this. I don't want to constantly be judging you. I want to show you restoration. I want to show you reconciliation. He says, I'm a high and holy God, but actually I dwell with those who are of a humble and contrite heart. And this is what God is looking for. He's looking for people who will recognize their need, who will come in repentance and in humility before the Lord and say, God, you are the one who saved. There's no hope in any of these other sources. There's no hope in these non-gods. You alone are the one who saves. There's an amazing picture of salvation, of rescue in these chapters, but there's also a pointing out the fact that if we don't come in humility, if we don't come in contrition before God, we're going to miss it. So once again, as we come to this day, as we come to a day which is the day the Lord has made, this is a day God has given to us, where we can rejoice and be glad in it, but also that means coming with that contrite, with that broken heart, with that heart of meekness that says, God, I need you so much. And in that way we can experience this amazing covenant of God that God promises us, this amazing covenant that he has given to us, this hesed, this covenant grace which never fails. Have a very good September 28th.